we're happy to announce our second live event this year. On Tuesday, the 14th of November, we're going to be hosting Alex Lelch from Lelch Audio, also the owner of the Lowlands, a new wedding event center in St. Paul. Jordan Diorio will join me as a co-host for the first time. She is the podcast host of The Refund, and we're going to ask Alex all kinds of questions about being a serial entrepreneur, his immigration story to the United States, as well as starting two businesses and running both of them. So if you're interested in all things business, as well as a networking event within the construction industry, please join us that night. Again, that's the 14th of November. All details can be found at CuriousBuilderPodcast.com. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. Adaptive is an AI technology that we use for all our cash flow management. If you're in construction, you know how difficult this is. The days of importing all your invoices, cost coding them, asking 10 people in your office where they get coded, is this job approved, is this invoice approved, making notes, all of that is now done through AI. Your invoices get automatically uploaded. After that, all you have to do is cross-check its accuracy per the jobs. This is now saving us hours per job per month, because with a click of a button, you can now have the draw process automated, which has been a complete game changer. On top of that, it's going to track your lien waivers as well as your certificates of insurance, making sure that everyone is in compliance before their bills are paid. This is saving us hours and hours per job per month, all with a click of a button. If you want to know more, check out adaptive.build. Additionally, we interviewed Matt Calvano on episode 15 of the Curious Builder Podcast. You can find out more about it on our website as well at thecuriousbrandpodcast.com.
That you brand the side of all your doors. And you know this because I was like, ooh, I want a brand with my name on the doors too, because that's cool. It reminded me of branding cattle. Like it's just cool. You know, hey, for as long as that drawer is there, that brand is going to be there. It's not going to rub off. No one's getting rid of it. Like it's embedded in the door. I love that.
Yep. It just means we're going to stand behind it. Our little company slogan is quality craftsmanship built on your ideas. It's just, we really want to build quality.
Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. I'm joined with Rich Hipp from Hipp Cabinetry. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you.
All right. For those that are listening, thank you for listening. For those that are watching, we are actually in our Artisan Home Tour house in Medina. So I thought it'd be really fun to bring Rich on, as you have been our cabinet maker for over a decade now, and actually shoot your beautiful cabinetry that we have in this home while we talk about your business.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Well, why don't we start with where you're located, but really kind of your history, and we'll kind of dig into the history of Hipp Cabinetry.
Currently, we're located in Buffalo, Minnesota. We're kind of right between Rockford and Buffalo in a pole barn, just in the south side of 55, tucked back in an industrial complex. We just needed a space that was big and we could make dust and noise and had a lot of power. So that's why we kind of ended up there.
Sure.
How we started out is... long story is, high school, I was headed to the Marine Corps. I wanted to do that right out of high school. And then ended up, since I had some surgery and stomach issues when I was in fourth grade, I was not allowed to get into the service. So I needed a job right away. I'd worked summers and winter breaks for a construction company that my buddy owned, or my buddy's dad owned, SAS Construction.
This was in high school?
This was in high school. So I worked all of that. Kind of couldn't get into the military, and then decided, okay, well, I bet I got to work. So
yeah,
I started working for them full time and did that for a long time.
What were you doing for them? What role?
I started out as just a laborer.
Yep.
Just
ditto.
That template needs to get to the backyard.
For those young kids out there watching this video, if you start as a laborer sweeping houses, you're going to turn into this.
Exactly.
So don't pick up a broom if you don't want to turn into...
The only trick I learned as a laborer is the faster you got the laboring done, is that would give them time to teach you something better to do. So my trick was always to get the crap around the house as fast as I could, so then they were forced to show me something different.
The cool stuff.
Because once everything's moved, they don't want to pay me to just stand there, so I show them something better.
Interesting. So you learned pretty early on that you had either an affinity or just an interest, a curiosity to learn about the various trades.
Yep.
Early on, what were some of the things that you were most interested in?
Just building in general and just how to construct it. How does this happen? I mean, obviously, like a whole home like this doesn't just happen overnight. It's who's in first, who's in second, what are the steps, what are the processes to get the house built and get it done. So I was fortunate with that company. They were a remodeling firm that did virtually everything in-house. So we did anything from concrete forms to finish work. So I got a very big picture of what is in a home and how it goes together and that type of stuff.
Pretty valuable background to see all of it like
that. I definitely, as my life has gone forward and business has changed, I've definitely valued that whole picture look, because I can always try to think of, okay, for instance, like a hood, if I put all the panels in it, yeah, it's easier for me on the front end, but then the heating guy can't get in and put his pipe in. So having some of those thoughts of like, oh, that's going to help that guy out, which will help out the end product.
I've been pretty fortunate. I've only worked with 2 cabinet companies in almost 20 years now. If I count my dad's company, for 40 some years, we've used 2 cabinet companies. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we had a relationship. When did we even, what was our first house? What year would that have been?
It would have been Ottenbright's was one of our first houses.
Oh, really? So that was like 2009, 10, somewhere in there. Well, 13 years ago. Wow. Nuts. But what I appreciate, probably not only your extreme competence and skill and craftsmanship in the actual cabinetry, which is why we continue to have a relationship, obviously, as we've elevated the homes that we do. I feel like we sort of have both elevated, you know, what we can do and offer people. But I feel like your understanding of the overall trades, and I know this has sometimes been a frustration, my favorite thing about you is probably your least favorite thing about me, in the sense that I love the fact that you know everything, because especially when I was younger and I didn't have project managers and site managers, I really relied on my relationships, which I had with, you know, people that I had multi-decade relationships with, you know, to call me and say, hey, this isn't how you would like it, Mark. You need to come and do a site visit, as I was being pulled in so many different directions. And, you know, like the example you just showed, you know, with the hood, you know, you, I think, kind of epitomize, you and maybe one other person on our team, that you spend a lot of time, and I know it takes a lot of effort, and I certainly appreciate it. I can never tell you enough how much I do appreciate it, as you know, because it's that kind of foresight and that kind of thoughtfulness that ultimately enables a home of this strata to be built and to do it again. You and I often talk about building a better mousetrap, and I feel like you're definitely part of our inner core where you help. That being said, you also see all the frustration points, and you're usually my first person that I call and say, Rich, what's not working? And it'll be this, that, and another thing. And so thank you again for being patient with me. You and my wife are very patient with me. So thank you for making me a better person and a better business person with just your knowledge. So going back to your, so you were working with SAS Construction till, at what point, you were how old?
It must have been about 22-ish, maybe, 21-ish. I don't quite remember. Had an opportunity to buy into a shed building company that I was also working for at the time. Ready built sheds, worked there, kind of looked at buying that. Didn't really work out with the owner as far as the purchase price and the business transition, but I worked there for, I think, 3 or 4 summers, and then I framed houses.
Interesting. So even in your 20s, you knew you wanted to own a business.
Actually, growing up, I swore I would never own my own business because my dad did. And my mom and dad worked together, and there was a lot of ups and downs in their businesses. And I just saw the family dynamic and the lifestyle, and it never really shuts off. And so I swore I'd never own my own business. My wife, who I met in high school, she knew right away when she met me. She's like, "You're going to own your own business someday." And I'm like, "No, I don't think so."
Your commitment to quality, almost excludes you from ever working for somebody else, because you're so diligent at making sure things are done right. You call yourself the wood butcher, which is probably what we're going to name this episode because it's very catchy, but you are more like a wood surgeon, in my opinion.
No, it's a hashtag line that you just kind of throw around, like all we do is cut wood, but no, it is quality, and that's what we strive for. So anyway, I worked for that shed company, and then I framed houses for Vipon Construction, which subbed through M.A. Peterson. So got another big realm of remodeling and seeing how everything comes together. Decided I didn't like being outside all summer long. Some people say that winters are the worst to work outside. But summers, when it's 95 and humid and you can't take enough clothes off to get cool, I can't do it. So I was looking for a trim job or a cabinet shop job. So I tried out a cabinet shop. But I also had a background in trimming. So I worked in the cabinet shop, and they found out I knew how to trim. So they sent me out in the field to trim and do cabinets. So I kind of worked in both ranges for that. Partway through that, I got an opportunity to work up at Monoman Resom Timbers up in Hugo, Minnesota. But at the time, I was living in Shorewood, Minnesota, which is about an hour and 10 minutes away. And at the same point, we were midstream of building our own home, which means we were actually doing all the work. We only hired out like 2 trades and everything else.
Dude, you had a lot going on.
So, yeah.
Was Joy pregnant at the time too?
No, we had 2 kids, and we were.
Oh, you already had 2 kids. Oh my word.
We were living in my parents' basement. And truthfully, my Bible study built our house with us. We had another house that the kids would get dropped off at, and then we would all go and build the house. And we built the whole house. And so I worked up at Minneapolis for about 6 months, saw a lot of different aspects than what a cabinet shop has, just with their different machining, different tooling, how they invested in their business differently.
And for those that don't know who Minnoman is, they're actually one of our sponsors, number one, but a shout out to them. But number two, they do reclaimed timbers.
Yes.
And so at this point, you've pretty much seen everything in construction, from forming concrete to trim work to painting to building your own stuff to reclaimed timbers. And you've kind of seen it all. I haven't heard metal. Have you had a metal job in there as well?
I haven't had any metal jobs, but I worked a little bit of metal, and I've got, luckily in our industrial complex, there's a metal guy that's like 2 pole barns away that does all my metal work.
All metal work.
Sparks and custom cabinet shops don't work really well.
No, that would sounds like an explosive environment.
Yeah.
So you worked at Minnoman for 6 months. It was basically the time. Was just too much driving time.
It was too much driving time. They were changing over their staff, so it was kind of a restructure. It was heavily involved, but also a lot of time commitment, and the kids and building the house, and I was just getting burnt out. So I went back to the cabinet shop that I was at, worked there for a while, and then
a couple of years, or what's a while?
A couple of years. And then the recession kind of hit, and I had always done odd jobs and stuff.
The first was like the 2008 recession.
2008 recession.
Yeah. We've been old enough now that we've had a couple of recessions, so we have to quantify which one we're talking about now.
Yeah. So this was the 2008 recession, and I was working for a custom cabinet shop, doing cabinets and trim work.
Yep.
And they didn't have another hole dug for a house to come up, and I had 2 kids and a wife at home to feed, and trying to figure out how to do that. And at that time, I was working 2 to 3 jobs to keep everything going at home, and I'd actually go in and start shed work at 1 in the morning and work there until 5, and then go build cabinets from 6 to 3, and then go do some odd job after work.
Wow.
So when it started to slow down, I had a bunch of my own work lined up, and I basically just told the owner of the cabinet shop that just said, "Hey, I realize you don't have enough work for us.
Yep.
I got my own stuff.
Yep.
I'm not going on unemployment. I'm just going to go do my own stuff until you need me again.
Yep.
And then we'll come back."
Yep.
So then 2008 hit harder than anyone really expected it to.
Right.
So I just kept finding work and finding work and finding work. So,
which is impressive, frankly, because that was like a 3-year, 4-year tail, right? Because like it was the fall of 2008 that the market crashed, and you saw some predictions early that summer. I only remember because I had a spec home finished right about that time. Awesome timing for me. But I mean, it was really the next 3 years that was like, you can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember actually project managing for another builder. I mean, to your point, I'd have a family. Thank goodness. I can't imagine the stress that you were under, because I was just like, to me, I remember one time someone telling me, like, worst case scenario, like, someone tried to sell me one time life insurance disability insurance. I'm like, I was single, right? And I said, "Hey, worst case scenario, like, I'm going to move home. My mom's going to make me huckleberry pancakes, and I don't have to work anymore." Actually, come to think of it, I could only be so lucky to be disabled. And the salesman was like, "I have no rebuttal for that. That's not on my sheet." But I get it, if you have a family and kids, like, obviously that scenario is totally different. So
yeah, and that was where I was very fortunate to have a big background. I mean, I could do anything from drywalling to insulating to framing, and that's kind of where we got a niche, where we would do a remodel and we would do the demo, the framing, the sheetrock. We'd build the custom cabinets and install them. So we were kind of just a one-stop shop.
So you were really remodeling. I mean, you were taking it all on, but cabinetry, at this point, where was your cabinet shop? Was it in your house, your garage, a shed? Okay.
I mean, literally the table side, really the job site was a table side, haul home at night and build the cabinets with. And
amazing.
It was that small of a startup.
Wow.
And it was a way to feed mouths
and
feed them the table.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just slowly kept building, and as our clientele built and as they referred us around, my grandfather was in the plaster business for many years, and he always said, if you do quality work and keep good care of your customers, you'll never be slow. You'll always have work. And luckily, he's been very right.
Right.
So,
sounds like a cool grandpa.
So, yeah,
it's
awesome.
You'd mentioned who I've met your dad before, George. What you mentioned he owned his own business, or your mom as well. I guess I didn't know that. What did they do?
So they own a computer company doing point of sale systems, cash registers for different companies and organizations.
Okay.
That type of thing. So some of those types of things. So he was heavily computer. I got out of computers and hated computers and wanted to just get into trades because I wouldn't need computers.
Joke's on you.
Yeah. I kind of have a tech company that cuts wood is pretty much
That's funny.
So yeah, we do a lot of stuff on computers now. So yeah, and then as we slowly built the company, we bought more and more equipment. We did different remodels, did different jobs. Got to a point where our shop was big enough that I needed to keep the machines running because they were expensive. it wasn't worth, buying a $50,000 machine and then going to go sheetrock and tape for 3 weeks and the machine just sit there. So made the choice to just kind of stop the remodels and just go exclusively custom cabinets.
I've always wondered about that. Oh, I mean, you obviously have an affinity for craftsmanship. We talked about it early on. What is it about cabinetry that seems to always center around people that really focus on quality and craftsmanship? Because I've met other trimmers that have then more, they always seem to, everyone wants to be a cabinet shop. Why does that seem to be a natural progression for so many people that are very detail oriented?
Because it takes the detail to do it. I mean, you have to have an eye for it. All of our employees, they got to be able to read a tape measure very well. They have to be able to, make sure things meticulously run and operate and work. As far as like coming from trim and going to cabinets, some of that affiliation is to have a shop where you can go in at any time, turn the lights on versus trying to run out of your truck or go to a job site and there's set hours. It's a double-edged sword. Lights are great, but at 3 a.m, they're also not so great when you're going in to get a job done, but that's what you have to do to get it done. So it's kind of that natural progression. A lot of times when kids are younger, they want to frame, just to get it done and go. And then as they get older too, they want to get into that more fine detail type of work.
This episode is brought to you by the Scout Guide Minneapolis. The Scout Guide is a curated guide of Twin Cities' hottest spots, companies, people, venues, and events, focusing on all things local and small business. When you pick up their magazine, it just feels different. You open up the ads and they're not just, the team in front of the building with your normal photo. It's vibrant, it's unique. It might even be set in a completely unusual setting, something that catches your eye and not only tells the story in a picture, but lets you know that that's a company that you want to go visit. Look for something different this year. Pick up the Scout Guide. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for advertising, I'd highly recommend it. They have an incredible social push. One thing that I was really interested in is that they will go to your events. They will go to your place of business. They will ask you questions that they then post on their feeds, and they have quite a following. Find them on social media platforms at the Scout Guide Minneapolis. This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19.5 years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella Windows. Find more at PellaNorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella Windows.
Would you say, so it seems like the remodeling side of it was very much a necessity thing, right? Yep. You needed to do it.
Yep.
The name Hipp Cabinetry and Construction, was that the name from get-go?
Yep.
Okay.
So that was the name from get-go. We kicked around having a different business name, couldn't think of a good one. Thought it meant a lot to have our name on the product and on the project, and just said, hey, we're going to stand behind the job because our name is on it, and so that's kind of where we came up with it. I know some people have said, well, if you sell a business, it's hard, but I also know other businesses that have sold have different owners than what that name is, and it's just fine.
Yeah.
And so that's where we just decided to build the brand.
I've struggled with that as well. You at least thought about it. When I started my company, in 2005, I had no thought of the future, right? I was 23 years old. What did I know about running a business or selling one? You just kind of more just like, I'm just going to go. And there is a lot of benefits to just doing something. Sometimes I think we can get paralyzed, as a paralysis analysis. You spend so much time thinking about what to do, just go. And there's pros and cons. And, but anyway, just last year, 8 months ago, we rebranded. And a big part of what I was thinking about doing was renaming. And the idea was I'm 42, maybe I'll retire 60, 62. Hard to say how that's all going to look. I don't think the kids, my kids are so young that who knows what they're going to be interested in. In fact, I hope they're not, because that means I'd have to work even longer. But the idea is to your point, your name, Mark Williams, it's like, oh man, I wish I had named it something cool. I like the mountains, so I always wanted to do some cool mountain name, something that inspired, which is funny because nothing I build is really mountain-esque. But,
it's the problem with coming up with a name too, does it pigeonhole us to
a style,
a type, something that we may morph out of because I don't know what the future holds, you know.
What I like about what you said, and I'll have to think about that in my marketing because I like that. I love the idea that you really own it. And it's true because, you know, for our clients that know you, and which is every one of them, because cabinetry is a very intimate process. I would say interior designer and the cabinet guy or woman is essentially the most integral part of the home in the sense of the amount of time the client spends with you. Because cabinets, I would say the one thing that we get the most common after a client is built is they wish they had done more cabinets, or they're glad they did the cabinets that they've had, because good storage, good design is also one of the most expensive things in the house. But that being said, I think people really appreciate good quality craftsmanship, but also it's such a design feature as well. You know, the panels, the looks, all these different aspects of it. But I love the fact that you wanted your name on it. I even like the fact that you brand the side of all your doors. And you know this because I was like, ooh, I want a brand with my name on the doors too, because that's cool. It reminded me of branding cattle. Like it's just cool. You know, hey, for as long as that drawer is there, that brand is going to be there. It's not going to rub off. No one's getting rid of it. Like it's embedded in the door. I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it just means we're going to stand behind it.
Yep.
You know, our little company slogan is quality craftsmanship built on your ideas. It's just, we really want to build quality. You know, some of the ideas of what we are told to build, we have to try to figure out how to make that something that's quality and something that'll last and something that we're not going to have warranty issues on. So, we really want to stand behind our product.
You mentioned that last part. I was going to bring that slogan up, so I'm glad you did. You know, the part about built on your ideas. Walk us through, you know, obviously now we're at a much different place in my personal career of the homes that we build from when we first met, right?
Yep.
So the homes when we were first building were probably 500,000-600,000 and beautiful homes.
Yep.
Craftsmanship of the woodwork and the cabinetry is essentially the same.
Yeah.
It's essentially style, scale, and size.
Yep.
And, you know, now we're building homes that are, you know, 5,000-6,000 square feet, 4 or 5 million, you know, whatever it's designed as. But now architects are much more involved. Interior designers are much more involved. Walk us through kind of what you've seen. You know, early on, I would sit down with you, and essentially the ideas would come from the client, myself, and the interior designer.
Yeah.
But they weren't usually drawn up. You often did a lot of the CAD drawings.
Yep.
It seems like now I sort of have a foot in two worlds, where one is the high-end homes where the architects are drawing it, speccing it, and you're essentially doing what they're asking you to do. Yep. But you also have been around a long time, so you know kind of what works and what doesn't work. Talk to us a little bit about the evolution of design and you know, your ideas, because you have a lot of ideas too. And do you think is this big open-ended question about just how do cabinets get designed and who's leading the charge on the design?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, ideally we'd love if the architect or interior designer has either like a lookbook or a set of drawings for us to start looking at, and giving me some information about the family, how they live, how they work. And also about some of the finishes. Are they looking for stain? Are they looking for paint? Are they looking for, just how do they live their life? Because with the cabinetry, it's also not just become these boxes we throw against the wall. It's how do they function? And where does the Tupperware go? Where do the pots and pans go? I cook a lot. I want room for spices. I want room for oils. So how do we get all those needs, wants, desires out so we can design and plan them in? And then just trying to figure out how to get it all acclimated into the drawings. So if they can have a lot of that information on the front end, it really helps us out a lot. Mainly because I'm not part of that whole front sale.
Where people are figuring out, which I have a feeling that I'm known for this, because early on in my career, a lot of our ideas, it wouldn't be just a cabinet meeting.
Right.
So many other things come out.
Yep.
Now, I know I'm special, and these are air quotes for those that can't see this. How common is it when you're working with a builder, does that happen, where all these other things come out? Because I know, not frustrated really, but like, you know, if I was to go to the electrician and start talking about painting, the electrician would be like, why am I here? If I was talking to the wood floor and I'm talking about the roofing, he'd be like, why am I here? But somehow cabinetry is such a key part of the whole house. We're talking about stone, we're talking about beams, we're talking about lights, I mean, we're talking about everything. Is that normal?
For the cabinet part, for me and my company, yes. I'm very detail oriented. We call it our triple P's of proper prior planning. It's just this, how thick is the backsplash? Because the wood liner has to fit up there. Now, I don't care what tile it truthfully is, but is it a 1/4 inch or is it 1.5 inches? Because I got to make sure it fits. So there's just a ton of details to get through. I've had some job soups say, why do you care so much about all the details? I said, well, because I'm trying to save you the headache on the tail end when stuff doesn't fit. And so that's where it's a lot of just details of dotting my I's, crossing my T's. I've got an awesome team behind the scenes that also helps, and between a programming department and then just the guys in the shop, just double checking, triple checking, making sure everything is actually going to work and fit, that the appliance specs are right and that they'll fit in the hole. And so yeah, just trying to get through all those details. And that's where having some computer software and some of these 3D renderings and some of that stuff has really helped in the process. And so yeah, kind of from the design phase, then we should just kind of go from taking it from their drawings and their pictures into our software. The reason we have to put it into our software versus keeping it in their software is our software talks to our machines in the background. So it'll generate a facing list, a door list. It'll generate CNC files to be cut. It'll talk to our upcut saw on where to cut boards, cut pieces. So it's all integrated in the background and stuff that we've programmed into it. So that's why it always has to go into our software. So that's why your clients will always see our shop drawings as their last final approval versus the architect's drawings. And then we have a lot more detail as far as what's going on in the cabinet versus just the face of it. You know, where are the line hole drills, where are the slides, where are the shelf pegs, all those things.
Do you think it'll ever get to the point where that, you know, obviously the architects are spending a lot of time drawing cabinetry, and it's really so the client, the designers, everyone knows what's going in and also what we can bid, which is a big part of it.
Yep.
That being said, you still have to kind of recreate everything. Now you're going off a template. It's lack of a better description, it's probably like tracing, right? You're tracing something that's already out there, and then you work through some of the details, obviously, and change it a little bit. Do you think there'll be a point in time where the software and whatever's being drawn will be able to be imported into your CAD software, so it'll save you? Because how much time, let's say you have a 4,000 square foot house like this, you know, I don't know the exact number, let's just say there's $100,000 of cabinets in this entire house. How long would it take you to draw all this? Like, once I give you the plan, how long would it take you to kind of rough sketch or rough draw it? Do you rough draw it? You actually don't rough draw it. You go straight to your CAD first.
We go straight to CAD.
And how long would that take?
So a home of this scale or a little higher end, if we already have architect plans, it would take us about 2 days to get into our system.
2 days. Yeah. So is that 2 8-hour days or hard? So 16 hours. Wow. That's way more than I would have thought.
Yep. And then where I do see some stuff transitioning in the tech is, so I draw everything out for your plans, but then it gets built and every wall changes by a little bit. Inch here, 2 inches there, this shifted here. So there's e-templates that are out there where you can come in and like take photos of the job and do measurements. The problem is they don't integrate with my existing drawings. So that's where I see some integration happening in the future, so that I don't have to then move the walls bigger, then move the cabinets to it. Because there again, that takes another couple days worth of just tweaking everything and making sure things are right.
So you've got 2 days if you have the drawings. How many days or hours if you have no drawings? Like the old way, like we used to do it, where you'd have a plan, they'd be blocked out, but there's no elevations. Right. So we have to sit down for 3 hours, probably 2 to 3 hours for that initial meeting before you're going to draw something. So let's count those 3 hours. Let's go round up. Let's call it a half a day. Now, how long does it take to draw it all?
It would probably take me on those first few houses we were doing. It was like 3 to 4 days to get them additional
double.
Drawings. Yeah, pretty much double. Just because I was trying to formulate the design and the picture of how it should look, and I didn't have the architect giving me the guidance or the interior designer giving me the guidance. We were making it up on the fly, where it was like, oh, do they want the 2-door look? Do they want top lines of 5-piece or slab? And so a lot of that was more just me having time to think through, dream it out, and visualize it in my head and get it into CAD. I am not a tech person by design.
You've had to.
I've had to. So some of that also was me learning software, me figuring things out. How do I make this work? Even with the softwares we have, my programmer will take what I draw and then cut it apart in the background so that it actually gets the parts out right. Because some of the stuff we build is so custom, we can't draw it accurately enough. And then so she'll take one giant cabinet that I drew to show everybody what it looks like, and she'll split it into 4 different boxes in the background and then spit out parts to the machines for the guys. So there's all that going on.
I mean, technology has advanced a lot. That being said, to your point, you're still cutting wood with a saw. But walk us through a little bit, you know, your old shop, was that a building on your house property?
So I started just doing stuff in my garage.
Yep.
And then I had a buddy who had a shop that we kind of did stuff in.
Okay.
And that was just a 2-stall garage that he built doors in and I built cabinets in.
Yeah.
And then we were getting busy enough where I'm like, I got to build my own shop.
Because I assume storage is probably the hardest point. Like you could produce whatever you need, but then storage is like, what do I do with all these cabinets,
It's
right?
space, you know. So even when we were in that garage, we had to do very methodically, like, okay, we're going to do all our big cuts so that our sheet goods are gone, and then we'll finally get to assembly, and we'll assemble these ones first and these ones second.
Do you feel like you learned a lot of useful, lack of a better description, space management skills because you didn't have the space? I mean, is there any skills that you developed there being in a small space that you feel like has paid dividends now in a larger space?
Yeah, just systems. I mean, the systems are big.
Are just locked in.
Locked in, and just getting the systems down. With each shop we've had and each new machine we've added or in each new software piece, the systems change, and you got to just be willing to dive into them. So much of what we do is custom, so it's hard to have a hard system, right? But you got to have some sort of rough framework of how things are going to work and flow and get through the door. So,
And going to today, now you have a beautiful shop. How many square feet?
we're just under 10,000 square feet between the showroom and the shop.
Yep.
So
And you've been there 4 years?
we'll be 5 years next week.
Okay, wow.
So
And walk us through, obviously that space has been a game changer for you in terms of space, size. I assume as you've scaled up with not only me as a primary builder, but other builders and remodelers. Walk us a little bit through of how you procure. I just think it's really interesting because you have some pretty expensive, the CNC machine. Walk us through a little bit of the business side of that. So when did you know that you needed to buy certain equipment? And walk us through a little bit of how the pricing of it, used versus new, and then how do you afford stuff like that? Is that like, as someone who subcontracts everything, I don't have to do capital expenditures, so maybe I should know this, but I don't, and I'm just curious about it.
yeah, so how we've done it, each shop move has been just a size thing, just needing to grow the business. And then the main reason I jumped into CNC is it was kind of new in the cabinet industry. But I was losing my main guy who was doing what we call machining, where once the parts are all cut, you have to do the line drilling, the datoing, the notching, basically making all the plywood squares have something on them. So he was quitting and moving back home. And I was just in a spot where I needed to hire another guy with the exact same knowledge and the exact same skill set, or I needed to buy a machine.
Right.
And so that's when I jumped into the CNC world. We were already using software to draw things, so we were kind of already into that, but I didn't pay for the CNC controller module from that software company at the time. So then we had to add that in, learn that, and then get the CNC up and running. I thought I did really good research on CNCs I want to buy. Long story short, I did not buy a great one. I thought with the price point I paid, it was really good, but it was not.
What did you pay for your first CNC machine?
My first CNC just to get it to the door was $50,000.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a very decent investment. It was comparable to other CNCs that were out there, and they had a ton of stuff online. They had a really good presence. They were very good salesmen.
And I'm sorry, this was used or new?
This was new.
Okay.
I've gone new with the CNCs mainly because I don't have a CNC background.
Right.
So when you buy them new, it comes with training. And you're paying for it.
Right.
I totally understand that. But so when our CNC showed up, we had time to get it wired, placed, and then they flew a tech out to train us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Out of curiosity, if you had bought that used, the same unit roughly, what would you have had to pay, but without training?
Probably 25 to 30.
Okay.
I mean, you can save a significant amount, but you also don't know what you're getting.
Right. Or know how to use it. I mean, it makes, obviously you paid money to get trained, so you didn't really have a choice, frankly. Where now you probably would.
So we had that machine for about 4 years. I had nothing but service issues with it. We moved it into our new shop, flew the techs out from California 2 more times on my dime, tried to get it up and running.
Even though it wasn't working, you had to pay for it.
I was out of warranty.
I see.
So then it's on
Yep.
my dime.
Yep.
And that's where it just kept nickel and diming me.
Yep.
Every sales guy will tell you when you buy a machine, it'll never call in sick. It saves you that sick day. I'm like, yeah, but every machine breaks. So
Right.
I learned a lot in that first machine is, I need a service company that can fix these things. And so basically, long story short, is we had just built our new building. We paid to get it fixed 2 more times. It still didn't work. I called the guy who was selling us sandpaper and other stuff, and he sells bigger machines. And I just basically said, hey, Mike, here's my deal. I'm basically broke. I flew the guys out twice. I need a new CNC. I know you guys are an awesome one. It's more than I can afford. What can you do for me? I want to make this a tooling partnership for the future. I'm not retiring next week. I want to keep buying stuff, And then I also told him, I said, I'm going to finance it through you guys. So if it's a piece of junk, you can come repo it. I don't even.
Did the first one? Did you pay cash for?
I paid cash for it, or I financed it locally.
Yeah.
I didn't pay cash.
Sure.
But
Yep.
it's basically a lot like a car loan.
Yeah.
It's a 5-year loan.
Yep.
It's at whatever the market rate is, and that's how it is, and you just do your monthly payments. So that's how the loan.
Is that similar to other like excavation equipment? Is that pretty
I would
similar?
So.
Okay.
I mean, I've never bought much excavation equipment, but as far as I know, as far as capital tooling equipment, it's similarly done with that. We're looking at some bigger equipment in the future that might look at a different loan structure versus the 5 years. It might be more like 7 or 10.
What would so the one that you bought, and kudos to you for asking for help. I remember, and as I mentioned this on another podcast, advice that I got from someone who had a successful business for many years said that the thing that is the most underutilized in an entrepreneur's vocabulary is I need help. And, in a genuine way, obviously. And because people generally do want to help you.
Yep.
And I think it validates a relationship, number one. I mean, if you were to call me, obviously we're friends personally as well, but like anytime someone calls you and says, I need help, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, it's like someone is totally, you're like, they like me. Like, like, never mind that I went down to W to get to you. Everyone else in the phone book didn't answer. Be like, it doesn't matter. Don't tell them that part. So I really like that part of the story where you asked him for help. So how much did this machine cost, and kind of what was it? How did you structure this deal?
Yeah, so this machine was $80,000 just to get it to my door. Plus, we had to fly 2 of us to Charlotte, North Carolina to get a week's worth of training there, and then they flew a tech out for a week to train us as well. So all in, we're about $100K into the deal.
Right.
That one I financed through them. They have a finance department.
Yeah.
Similar.
And that'd be pretty normal. People would do that.
Yep. Generally, their rates are a little more expensive, or their interest is a little higher than your local bank.
Sure.
Got a history with.
Yep.
But it just depends.
Yep.
I went through them because if it was a piece of junk again, I just was going to stop payments and say repo it.
Right.
I don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
Awesome machine. We made all the payments. We paid for it.
Now you own it. Now it's yours.
I own it. And then
what out of curiosity, so you've had it for 45 years now then?
Yep, it'll be 5 years.
So you just paid it off recently then?
We'll actually pay it off in January.
In this January. If you, out of curiosity, had to sell it, what is the used market for these?
Yeah, so with inflation and the shortages last year, we actually have been looking at it because we're thinking about grading.
To what? A bigger unit, a faster unit? Like what does upgrade even look like at
so
this
an
point?
upgrade for us, we would look at, there's 2 different upgrades you can do to it. So our CNC is a 5x10 with a 10 tool holders in it. An upgrade for us would be an auto load, which would label all the parts for us ahead of time.
Yep.
It would grab the sheet, load it into the machine.
That's what that vacuum sucker thing that
Yep.
basically comes down like a giant elephant's trunk and sucks up the sheets.
Yeah, so this one would be different. This one would just be attached to the end of the CNC, so it's not going to actually go around the shop.
Okay.
This would be the first phase. So that one would just basically grab it from the end of the CNC, pull the sheet across, and cut it once it's all labeled, and then spit it out the other end. So then there's just a guy at the end catching it.
Yep.
So I wouldn't have to have a guy loading it and hand unloading it, and the labels would already all be on it. So
Right. So a lot of this point is not even craftsmanship, I would assume, comes in at some point, but it's really efficiency and speed that the CNC brings. Like, tell the audience a little bit, like, I think a lot of people talk about CNC or automation, but like in real layman's terms, like what does this machine do for you that is so helpful? Because I assume most competent cabinet shops at this point would, like, let's say if you pulled 100 cabinet shops, how many would have a CNC machine at this point?
At this point, I think we're close to 85 to 90. We're part of the Cabinet Makers Association, and they do events. And to your point of asking for help, they're great with forums and other things. I wish I would have known about them sooner, and I wish I spent more time on their forums. But they just had an event in Nashville this spring, and they polled everybody that was there to stand up and who has a CNC, and there was very few shops that were still sitting.
What would that number have been 5 years ago?
5 years ago, it was under half.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
explosive adoption.
Yeah. When we bought into our first one, we were pretty early on. And I'd say we were in the first 30% of shops that bought them. Now, there was bigger shops like your box shops that had them.
Yeah.
But they're pumping out 400 sheets a day.
Right.
And that's a different game.
I think something that's amazing, and maybe we'll post something on social because I've done this. I can't remember if I did this with this house or the previous home, where I went to your shop when you received delivery. And, this kitchen area is probably, 25 by 18, and all the cabinets in this entire house would have fit in a sheet maybe by 10 by 15 feet.
Oh, for the cuts.
Yeah, for all the raw material.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it just comes, and like you're like, there's no way all the $100,000 of cabinets can be that pile, but when it's all flat, and then when you assemble it, obviously it gets the volume. But it's always our clients don't get to see that. No. Even me having been in the business for that long, while I come out to your shop, probably now less than I used to, but seeing that was kind of just like, wow, that is really satisfying.
Yeah, and I wish I had more time to do videos on stuff like that for the clients to show them like what the raw product is and what we built.
Yeah.
A lot of them think we get some pretty finished products in to start with, and it's really just the tree cut down in the forest, and you go from there with it. So,
right.
So yeah, and then you were touching on automation versus craftsmanship. So we had that argument when I bought my first CNC. I had an employee who was like, it takes all the craftsmanship out of it. It just automates the whole thing. And how I term it is yes, it does take some of that out of it and automates it. But what it does free me up to is take your value as a craftsman and putting it into assembly or into install or things like that. So when we have a labor shortage, instead of having a guy doing a menial task over and over and over and over again, that does take some accuracy and some competence. I can have him doing something more specialized, building a custom hood, throwing a radius in the back of an island, versus go and cut 300 sheets over there for the next week and a half. I can actually automate it to a machine that can do it.
Well, and as we've talked with other business owners on this podcast, a big part of our day is running the business, which is not even practicing your art of the actual cutting of the wood and all that, right? That takes a huge amount of time. We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. What would be the next technological advantage or next step in technology for your specific shop?
So we're actually switching software right now. We've been doing that for about the last 6 months. So we're going to keep working on that for the next year.
And why? What is this? What is that?
So it's just a different background, different basis. The software we had was developed before CNCs were big, and then they kind of added CNC in. They did a good job of it, but the software we're switching to was designed when CNCs were involved. And so it's a lot more CNC based, a lot more, it's actually SketchUp based as far as the drawings go. So if we get a custom hood, I can go to SketchUp, import it.
So a lot of our architects work in SketchUp. Correct. Could you take a SketchUp model and a drawing and take it right to your software?
I can. I would only take like the hood or specialty things that are hard to draw, because like say your box cabinets, the interior designer isn't going to draw what the inside of my cabinet looks like.
Right.
So that I wouldn't pull in. It would just be the specialty things that we're not going to use the software to cut anyway.
I see.
Most of the time, hoods and super specialty stuff, we use a totally different software to talk to the machine.
I see.
And make that happen. So when you start getting into CNCs, you generally have 3 or 4 different softwares that you're running to make it work, to do whatever you're trying to do, because everything's custom and different in our world. If I did strictly box cabinet shop stuff, we'd have one software and it would just speed out sheets every day. But every hood we do is different. Every kitchen we do is different. And there's tooling for every different thing. So we would pull some of those features out right from their drawings and just import them and put them in.
Right. How have you managed, so your team size now, what does your team employees look like?
Yeah, right now we're at about 10 employees. We've actually got 2 of them that are transitioning and moving to different parts of the country because they just want to explore different options in their life. So we've hired a couple of new guys to replace them. Just hired another new shop manager because the shop manager I had wants to go back to college this fall. So he was nice enough to give me 8 months notice, which...
solid.
Yeah. With all the guys that are leaving this summer and with that one, they've all given me 6 to 8 month notice, which is just like, they're very appreciative of how we've done business with
I feel like you have done a marvelous job of hiring people and then training them up. Is that accurate?
We try really hard.
Versus like going and buying someone that's not buying. Well, I guess you are, but hiring somebody that's already very well trained. I feel like your crews are very young and very maybe green at the start, and I don't know what has been your thought process. Either there wasn't not someone out there to hire, or the money that you'd have to pay them, it was worth it more for you to train them the way you wanted to do it.
Yeah. So for us, we build a very unique product. It's a very unique product, a very unique home. And so we generally try to train them from having just rough carpentry school skills and then train them how we want them to do it. We've tried to put in as many systems as we can, but with custom, it's very difficult. And then obviously having the machines and the automation and the lifts, that helps to kind of keep it going where it's going. But I really try to value the guys because they do awesome work and they're amazing. I couldn't do anything we do without my team behind me. I try to say that whenever the clients come in and they're like, oh, it's all amazing. I'm like, I can't take the credit. This is not just a me thing that just shows up and it happens. Between our programmer and my wife paying the bills and doing the payroll and the guys in the shop just cutting the wood, managing the wood, making sure it's not getting beat up. And it's a full process, and it's amazing how it all comes together at the end. And, we just did an event last Tuesday actually here at another house where it's just taking their families out and showing them what we built. Because a lot of times the wives, kids, parents don't get to see what these homes are. They hear about it. They might see a picture on Instagram or something, but to actually come in and touch it, feel it. And it was really good. I think that the company liked it. I think the team liked it. But I always try to tell the guys, hey, I'm for you, not against you. And I'm for your better development of where you want to go in your life. And it seems to also reciprocate that they're for us, not against us. So
how did so I mean, I think that's really special that you do that. I just made a note because we used to do a little bit of that more. Obviously now I have young kids, and just nights are very difficult, and just schedules in general. It seems like everyone is so busy. But what I guess what were the wives and what did their significant others think when they were in this home, and walk us through how you.
I think they let all the guys in trouble because their wives and girlfriends now want projects made.
That is the danger of having your family come through what you build. Because I usually tell my clients, like, don't worry, I can't afford my product either.
I used to not let Joy into the job sites because I didn't want her to know what we could do. But no, I think it was great. I think it was eye opening for a lot of them to just know what they do. I mean, there is still this kind of, oh, you're just a blue collar job. Not culture, but feeling. And these guys aren't blue collar jobs. These guys are building high end stuff and high end homes at a high caliber in a tight timeline usually. And they're doing really good stuff. So,
what is your favorite thing to do if in a week? Like if you could do it, I know, because as business owners, my other question is going to be, what's your least favorite thing to do as a business owner? So we'll start with the good stuff. What's your favorite thing to do when you own a cabinet shop? People
have asked me that in the past, and if I could throw my headphones on and my earplugs and just go assemble cabinets for a day and turn my phone off, would be just to go back to the past of what it was. Just kind of. So that's because I often see you obviously installing some of them. You're obviously on install, so it's because you enjoy that. I enjoy that aspect of it, and plus it just give me a chance to just focus and work. When I'm doing the installs, I do that mainly for the client interaction, builder interaction. Make sure as things change, we can get ahead of it and keep up with it. But I'm also on the phone all the time, dealing with texts and managing. And it is hard balance between am I managing or installing and getting that through. But do you have a right-hand man, if you will, that kind of is able to take some of that burden off you? What would be something that would allow you to do, if you enjoy that, what would be something operationally you could do to maybe allow you to do that more? Yeah, so if we could find a decent install team, but the problem we have with everything being so custom and inset is, I mean, if you install the cabinet out of level or square, everything rubs and it doesn't work very well. So we're training in new installers to free me up a little bit of that. I'll never get back in the shop. I know that. The guys laugh at me in the shop because they know they're better than me in the shop. They're like, what are you doing here? They're like, go away. Like you. It's like when I try to tell my team, because obviously I used to do all my own project management, my own scheduling. And of course, I always think I can schedule better than my people. And they're like, stop messing with the schedule. Get out. Yep. So, I mean, the shop-wise, we have a shop manager that manages the shop. We talk, about deadlines and when things get delivered. But for the most part, I really try to not micromanage it because I do value their trade. I do value their craft. I do value them as a human, that they can make wise decisions. And you have to free them. You have to give them the space to fail. You have to give them the space to spread their wings and grow. Yep. I mean, and we do have some mistakes. We do have some things that are like, we got to remake that, or we got to rework that, or we put the wrong piece of plywood in the CNC. It doesn't know what you put in it, and it cuts it. And it's like, okay. I bet you didn't do that at John's house. No, we were very, very fortunate on that one that we didn't have any of that rework stuff. But we also ran a lot of test sheets ahead of time. Did you? So we did a lot of just mock-ups and just cheap material, making sure things are going to work. So the house you're referring to is very high-end, very cork lines and things that had to line up, grain that had to run through. So we did a lot of testing on just MDF and plywood to make sure it would work before we put the Abadir and McCore and other machine or other. For those listening, I mean, this was this elaborate contemporary home that we built last year. Gorgeous. Check out our website to see it.
for Rich work and our work. But essentially it was, all the wood was from West Africa. My joke with the architect was there no wood in North America? And the wood's incredible, incredible, but it's all bookend match, but I mean, all these different matching profiles and I remember one time, John, who loves to listen to our podcast, so he'll love us talking about his house. And, but he, he loved watching it, right? But he also would always say, like, why is this going so slow? And I remember one time being like, because Rich is sweating through shirts like a day, because if one of these sheets gets cut, like the entire wall has to be redone. We might have to shut the project down for 6 months. And I think when you were able to explain that to me, and then I was explaining that to the client, like, wow, okay, a whole nother appreciation. Because, obviously, most of our cabinets are probably, what percentage of our cabinets do you think are paint grade today?
Paint grade, we do about 75% right now.
Right, so it's pretty easy. You got sheets in this, you could turn that thing around real quick and no problem.
Just stock it.
Yeah, you just stock it.
It's nothing.
But man, you cut some fiddleback McCore, you're like, that's not coming for 6 months to a year. Who knows when that's going to come? So. Yeah.
So that house had some sophistication, and then just being able to have that BSE C&C for that house. And then we had bought a BSE edge bander for that house as well, because it was such a modern house with so much edge banding that was custom. That it just really helped us out to be able to
do you use that now? Is the edge bander helpful?
Yep. And we've, since that BSE first C&C that helped us out, we bought multiple machines from them, and they've just been, their service is amazing. Their quality is amazing. We just upgraded a year and a half ago, I think, to a 3-head wide belt sander. It's 54 inches wide. It'll do 3 heads in one shot.
You had mentioned once, I'm curious to see if you remember this. I'm sure you do, because you have an amazing ability to remember stuff. You're like my wife. You remember everything I said, even when I forget. But anyway, you said this. You had mentioned that you weren't sure you would do another home of that complexity without either some insurances in place or some backup stops. Because I think the point was that I thought was really interesting, and for the business owners out there, that maybe the material, I don't remember the job cost. Let's call it was $300,000-$400,000 of cabinets. It was expensive. I don't remember. The wood portion of that would have been higher than normal. What, a quarter, a third of the overall cost would have been the wood, because it was so exotic wood. And if some of those sheets were ruined, the financial burden on you, did you at the time, did you have insurance in place, or how would that work? Let's just say the CNC, because mistakes happen. Let's say a CNC machine or some guy in the shop, cuts through this band, and you're like, I've got to order all this wood from Africa again. Forget the time. What would the financial repercussions of something like that even look like, and how would you prevent that in the future?
Yeah, so it was a make or break job for us. I mean, I was very nervous about it, that it could put us out of business when we took it. We've obviously worked with you a lot in the past, so I felt there was a little bit of a comfort level of, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do our best. And I felt like you actually knew us well enough that you'd know we were doing our best, and it wasn't a purposeful thing. And we had those conversations of like, hey, we're going to do what we can. I can get the material when I can get it, and I can do everything I can. We were also controlled a lot of it. I know we kind of screwed up the schedule with things, but we were very meticulous when we were there, how long we were there, and the steps and the processes. Truthfully, I should have probably got a little bit of insurance on it in the background, but at the same point, I kind of just figured me taking so much control of it was our insurance effort. And that was just control on the site. Again, my team in the shop took really good control of it. We had basically morning meetings about, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is our test. If that works, run this. And they were awesome with it. The guys.
Right. I have to believe, too, that, everyone that's walked through that house is just like in awe. I've had some architects through, and they're just like, wow. If you can impress an architect, especially the higher end ones, you're like, okay, we're doing some cool stuff. Because that house was jaw-dropping. And I think for us, that was a game changer. I think complexity-wise, I think that by far in my career, that's the most complex home I've ever worked on. I'm very proud of it, and I loved it. It doesn't mean it was easy. It was a very difficult home in terms of complexity. Client was amazing. And just, it was such a neat house where, a cottage style, if you will, because we built so many of them, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I can build these in my sleep because we're so used to doing it. And so we know the styles, and, we're just very comfortable with it. That one really challenged me professionally, and I feel like now I'm much more prepared to handle ones of that avenue, which is one of the reasons why I was so excited to get the job, because I feel like sometimes, someone will tell you, oh, I can build whatever style of home. But if you don't have it in your portfolio, it's always hard to get that first one. And you know this because you built all of them. But, now I think we had at the time $4 million homes. One was like a Lodge, Montana home. one was a contemporary home, and then, we had Mark and Carrie's home, the cottage Hampton style one. And so it was really cool for me to have 3 identical priced homes of totally different design, and the cabinetry was exquisite in all of them. One was all knotty alder, one was, the white oak rift cut, and then the other one is this African wood specialty, right? Mm-hmm. And so I assume from your point of view, do you also feel like having that kind of in your, feather in your cap, if you will, like you feel like, okay, now the next time that comes around, it's going to be obviously less challenging?
Yeah, definitely. And we kind of shied away from the modern type of cabinets for a long time because we didn't have the right machining for it. And before we got John's house, we were already tooling up for that, just because we saw that kind of was where the market was headed. So having a machinery makes a big difference too for how to do that stuff. So, and then the manpower too. Mm-hmm. Again, the shop guys are just great. And the programmer who programs all this stuff, Robin, is very good at what she does. So
we've spoken a lot about your quality, which is amazing. As you go into I've only ever worked with custom cabinets. I don't know if I've ever put a non-custom cabinet in a home. So I am not a good person to even ask of it's kind of like if all you ever drove was a Ferrari, I don't even know how a Ford drives. Mm-hmm. And so, no disrespect to Ford, because I own one. Yeah, they drive great. All the trucks, everyone owns a Ford. Walk me through, as a cabinet maker, when you go into another builder's home and you look, and not disrespectfully, but just looking at the quality, right? Yep. What do you see when you see cabinetry?
So when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the specialty stuff they integrate. We do a lot of integration with electrical, with lighting, with hoods, with appliances. And that's where I think you can differentiate yourself. Are all the outlets just in the backsplash? Are they tucked up underneath? Are they cleanly tucked up underneath, or are they just kind of up there and nobody really sees them? Are the appliances installed in an inset fashion, or are they installed as an overlay fashion? What are some of the stuff they integrated? Is it, are their trash pulls just normal, or are they different? Do the TVs pop up out of the floor?
Yeah.
Some of those.
So you're looking for the specialty stuff, right?
As far as making a box, it's a box.
Right.
I don't know what to say. It's a box. It's what you put on the face of it. That's how it functions. And
yep.
Obviously we use really high quality slides, hinges, hardware type of stuff.
Just speaking of hardware, and we have to get this into this podcast because it's such a fun story. So your wife has Austrian roots, correct?
Her sister lives in Austria.
Her sister lives in Austria.
Yep.
You have to tell the audience about the height of COVID, about the limitations that you were getting, and when you tried to go to Bloom to get some.
Yeah, so COVID hit. Then we got the supply chain issues. I was limited by my supplier to 30 sets of slides a month. You can see this kitchen has over 30 in it.
So you couldn't even do a kitchen.
So I was trying to be as resourceful as I could. Bloom is out of Austria. I had relatives there. I'm like, can you buy them direct from the warehouse? And either I'll come get them, ship them. I was trying to figure out ways to keep my business running, truthfully.
Because you had a lot of demand. People wanted it, and you're like, you couldn't meet it.
I couldn't meet it. And our vendors were doing everything we could. I had an awesome sales guy at my vendor who was pulling as many strings as he could, really fighting for us. Yeah. But when you're limited to 30 slides and 30 hinges a month, you can't do anything. So we were trying to buy them off the internet. We were trying to buy them from other vendors. I was watching Craigslist as people were selling 4 times what they should be because they were closing shops. I was buying them.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to stick with Bloom hardware because we've just had them for so long, and we stand behind them, and they stand behind our stuff. It's lifetime warranty. If I ever have an issue, they fix it.
Wow, lifetime.
Yeah. So, if your hinges break 30 years from now.
Wow, that's amazing.
They'll swap them out.
So you went to Austria.
No.
I thought you were there personally, no?
I was there personally just on vacation.
Oh, but you didn't. I've been telling the story that you went to the front door and asked for Bloom, and they're like, no.
They went to the front door.
Okay, yeah.
And tried to get them, and they were like, no, it's all through supply chain. We can't do anything. And,
right.
Long story short is Austria didn't have any more than we had in America. So
right, right. And then right. It
wasn't like they weren't trying to get them to us. It just wasn't.
I like real examples because everyone obviously talks about it just not theoretical, but just like these broad statements like, hey, supply chain is a mess. But I like a specific example of that to describe. Most of our listeners, I think, are in the industry, but for those that are not, letting them get a glimpse of just how difficult it is. This is really hard to do. Unfortunately, nobody told us how difficult this business was when we started.
No, and you'll change how you go. Before COVID, that we were trying to run lean, and we were going to where we would just order enough for each house and try to keep the capital investment low.
Right.
Supply chain hit, it was order anything you could get, right, and just stock it and have it, and that was And then it was also like clients telling you, well, we want this different now. And it's like, well, I already bought that material because I needed to buy it 6 months ago or you wouldn't have it today.
Right.
You know, it's trying to have those conversations.
Right. Just in closing, to switch a little bit, because I feel like we could talk for 5 more hours. We'll have to do a repeated series here. But tell us a little bit about just some personal stuff. You've got 2 girls.
Yep.
And mainly just because I really like it, having a girl myself and just the family structure. I've often called you for parenting advice and like, hey, what do you do with your kids' cell phones? And like, I think that's really interesting what you do. I think it's worth mentioning. Walk us through, like, you know, you have obviously teenage daughters, and then walk us through a little bit of the river rats, and we'll kind of close this down.
Yeah, so I've got 2 awesome daughters. They're 18 and 20 now. One's going to go to Biola next year for psychology, which is in California, and the other one is down in Winona in her 3rd year. She'll be a junior, kind of her last year, and then she'll student teach. The one going to Biola is going for psychology so they can understand me, and the one going to Winona is going for special ed so they can teach me. So
it's a win-win for me to pay for college and educate me. But,
so yeah, I got them. We've been skiing on the river rats for about 10 years, 10 and 12 years, something like that. Just kind of started organically where we taught the kids how to water ski, and the next year they're like, we want to join a water ski team, and we didn't have any idea what it was. Went to a practice, and it's just kind of been really fun for us. So it's a great family event for us. I'm the big guy on the bottom of the pyramid, and they're climbing up to the tops and different spots in the pyramids and doing different tricks. And it's been a forced 45-minute drive both ways for the family, which has been awesome for us to just talk and chat. And
I love that side of it, that you've committed to the family. Like, yes, you live in Buffalo. Driving to Minneapolis every Thursday night does not sound appealing, but the idea that you're all together as a family, I can't think of anything, frankly, where the family at all ages and skill levels can all be together doing something that has that family bonding. I think it's really special, which is why I wanted it to bring it out, because I think as hard as we work, people love their families. And how do you integrate business with, with your family? How do you do it? And your wife obviously is hugely integral into the entire business. I'm guessing you wouldn't even be here without your wife. So props to Joy.
No, I mean, she's up with me right away when I get up in the morning, whether that's 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. She gets up. We do a little business meeting in the morning. She makes my lunch and my breakfast. I head out the door and go to work, and she does our payroll. She does our books in the background. Most of what Joy does is in the background. She's very underappreciated for what she does, but she's very amazing with keeping it all going. And even with the river rats, she's generally making us dinner to eat in the vehicle on the way to the show, or practice, and then we're coming back home after that. So yeah, it's just been really good and a value for us. Cell phone wise, we just have a rule at dinner. They're off. Mine's off. Theirs is off. And we talk. We've had some friends over and they're still sitting around the table, and they're like, "Oh, your family actually like sits around the table and talks." And it's like, well, it's kind of like, it's our only time we get to connect. As the kids get older, they want to go hang out and do other things. And I'm at a different stage with my kids than your kids. Yours are still home. And they're kind of like, I'm out of here. And, we just realized that they're only here for a little bit longer, and then they're going to be doing their own life, which we're super proud of, and it's tough to watch you go, but it's exciting too at the same time.
Did they have any of them express any interest in either owning their own business or being part of the cabinetry business?
So we've talked to them a little bit about it. Neither one of them really have interest in it or expressed interest in it. And I'm not going to force either one of them to do it. My dad didn't force me into it, and it was a very good decision for him and for me.
Basically support them in what they're passionate in.
Exactly. You got to find something to do that you like. You're going to work for 40 years. You better like what you're doing, because it's going to take some time. So yeah, as far as, selling the business at some point, I don't know if it'll be an asset sale. I don't know if it'll be an employee sale. I don't know what that looks like at this point.
Yeah. Well, like I said, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for your decade with an S at this point of working together. And obviously our listeners can find you at your website.
hippcabinetry.com, and email's just rich@hippcabinetry.
Or go to MDW, or I don't even know my own website. I don't even know my own website. I don't know. It's MarkWilliamsCustomHomes.com or something like that. But because every single one of my homes has your cabinetry. So head there to see your work. And anyway, thanks again for all that you do for us to make us successful, and appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you. All right.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.